Welcome to Motorcycle Hang Time with Chris Klotz, attorney at Stevenson and Klotz Injury Lawyers. We invite you to hang with us as we talk about the local motorcycle scene, safety issues, and motorcycle law. And now, here's your fellow motorcycle rider and enthusiast and host.
Hey, everybody, this is Chris Klotz with Motorcycle Hang Time. I am an attorney with the Stevenson and Klotz Injury Firm, and we have a special, amazing, awesome guest today with some great life stories, and belongs to a business that does a lot of really good work in the motorcycle community here in Pensacola. Trevan, introduce yourself, man. And also, I want to tell you happy birthday, man. Happy birthday to you. I know today's your birthday, so thanks for taking time out of your day to come do this podcast. Just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Trevan Bowman. I'm the general manager at Cottonmouth Custom Cycles. We're down here in Pensacola on Gulf Beach Highway. I love motorcycles. What more can I say?
We're going to talk a lot about that, but I do want to talk about, Cottonmouth Customs and just a little bit about its genesis. And so you're the manager there. How long have you been working with Cottonmouth Customs?
I've been with Cottonmouth Customs for right about 2.5 years now.
Right on. And so I know that y'all moved into a new building about a little bit more than a year ago. Tell us about where you guys are located and what kind of services y'all provide to the motorcycle community.
We're at 8655 Gulf Beach Highway. We provide every service you can think of for a motorcycle. We do everything from ground up builds to restorations, custom paint, powder coating, body work, engine builds. You want monster cams, we can put them in. We can do big block builds. I mean, we like to make things go fast and look cool.
Yeah. And I can tell y'all out there in the listening audience that I've been out to Cottonmouth a bunch of times, and they have they've got a really cool inventory. Their shop is really cool. If you can talk Trevan into walking you back to take a look at the shop is super cool. But one thing that they have that I haven't seen a ton of this around town is y'all have kind of a collection of really special bikes there. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the bikes that y'all have that are special, kind of one-off?
The one collection that we're most proud of, it's the Retro Heritage Springer Softail collection. You've seen them. It's the red and white, the red and black, and the green and black. They're all Heritage Springer Softails. They were a limited edition hand-painted set that Harley Davidson corporate decided to make. Started with the 01, the red and white. They made this special 10 set for a Heritage Springer. It was supposed to be it's a hand-painted 10 set. They made 150 of them. They sent one out to each of 150 Harley Davidson dealerships around the country and told them it was a $1,500 upgrade for a Springer Heritage Softail. Well, the dealerships didn't know what they were. So they put them on random Springer Heritages out in the world they go, not knowing it's a one-off they're supposed to hold on to. So most of them got destroyed by now. They got ruined. The one we have there is actually on a black and silver Vend 03 frame, but it's the original 10 set on that Vend or on that frame and has 5,500 original miles on it.
Holy cow. And so those are pretty rare. How many of those 150 do you think are still left around the U.S.?
That one is the only one I've seen on the road.
Gotcha.
The red and black ones are more common because by the time 02 rolls around, they change it to a $3,500 upgrade. The dealerships got the memo. Oh, these are a special thing. We're supposed to hang on to them. So those ones are the most common. There's a dispute whether it's 150 or 250 made of the red and black ones, and then following year the green and black ones. So the red and black ones, they got hoarded. So those are the most common ones. We have 3 of those. The green and black ones were badged 100th anniversary, actually badged into the paint at Harley Corporate, which made them instantly collectible.
Sure, absolutely.
Again, was 150 or 250 made? There's a dispute on that. All hand painted. The 2 that we have there, a couple ways we can tell they're hand painted. One or two, if you put them side by side, the tints and the green are slightly different because the paint was hand mixed, not computer mixed. It was hand mixed. And then on one of them, on the inside of the fender well, there's 4 fingerprints in the green paint on the inside of the fender well. The painter left a signature behind.
Oh, that's kind of crazy. Kind of like the Van Gogh story where you actually seen Van Gogh, he would pick up his frame of the painting while it was still wet and set it over to the side. And you might have fingerprints from the actual artist in the motorcycle.
Exactly.
That's a really cool,
The thing that's really cool about the green and black ones is of the 150 or 250 of them made, there's only 5 of them in the country. Before they ever hit a showroom, they were bought and shipped overseas, mainly Asian collectors, American Icona. They scooped them up because they were they're made to resemble, the paint scheme is actually a 1930s paint scheme, but they're made to resemble an old 50s panhead. And especially in Japan, they love the American 50s rockabilly type thing. So they scooped those up and they hoarded them over there. So in this country, there's only 5 of those that are known between all the collectors. And all the collectors, the couple of collectors we talked to have dubbed them the Holy Grail because they're so rare.
Just as a matter of curiosity, like what would that go for on the Asian market if somebody was to decide they wanted to try to pick one up over there?
On the Asian market, I don't know. In the American market, if you find one for under $55,000, you're lucky.
Yeah. So that's a real collectible.
And the last one that I saw it was actually on eBay, but the last one I saw available was going for $54,000. That was 2 years ago.
Cool. Well, so I know that, talking a little bit about what the shop does, and I happen to have gotten a glimpse of this. And when I did the podcast with Biker Dad a month or so ago, kind of teased him about it because I had just been out to your place and seen the project that you're working on out there. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about the project that you're working on without revealing too much? Because I understand isn't the big reveal coming up pretty soon?
Coming up next Saturday.
Yeah, tell us about that project because that's a really cool project that y'all are doing for him.
Well, we decided to take the ugly out of his bike, and that was a lot. Fat Elvis needed to go on a diet. So we shaved off a few pounds, took Grandpa out, gave him a shiny new paint job, new stereo system, handlebars, floorboards. The only thing we didn't mess with was the actual powertrain itself, but we doctored up what we could around the powertrain. Powder coated his transmission cover. Basically, because the engine in that bike is the old flat gray instead of the dark black. That was one of the engines that did the flat gray paint scheme.
Right.
So the real trick was hiding that gray paint scheme by making everything else around it blended in. So we powder coated the primary cover, the transmission cover, all the parts around it. We powder coated that gray to kind of make it look new and clean. And then hit it in with the paint we did. We did a combination with Dean did all the paint work. He's a whiz kid behind this.
Right.
It's red, blue. It's a hot rod red, blue, a lot of silver leaf, a lot of grays in the paint. So it made it to where that gray on that engine looks as though it's part of the paint scheme.
That's really cool. And so is that all Dean's design? Did y'all just kind of turn him loose on it or?
Pretty much. He and I, we had a lot of talks over the ongoing on this, but the design is straight out of his head and his hands. All the pinstriping he did on it is all by hand. He doesn't do any cheap tape and all that stuff. He actually hand pinstripes everything. The silver, he modeled it in by hand and the lettering. And I mean, when you see it, you'll understand it's a work of art.
And tell us what y'all have planned for the big reveal on it. How are y'all going to do that?
Yes. I haven't come up with that yet because this just got dropped on me yesterday. Yeah. And at first they wanted to do it this Saturday, but this Saturday is Easter weekend.
Sure.
So we're moving it off to next Saturday, and I've got to come up with a game plan and marketing and get all the word out. Chris is already blasting it on the internet. He's all ready to go. He's anxious.
Oh, I know he's anxious because he's jealous that I got to see it before he did, I think. And that was actually a lot of fun. And when I saw it, it was still taken apart, and y'all were still working on some of the paint on.
You got to come by and
pieces.
Take a peek at it. It's pretty.
Wow,
really pretty.
That's super cool. And I know that y'all also have some retail there. Tell us a little bit about retail wise what y'all have there in addition to the services and the custom builds and everything. I know y'all have some retail availability and maybe some used parts too. Tell us a little bit about all that.
We have a really good used parts section. As John finds other shops going out of business, he'll talk to the owners and he'll go in and buy the entire shop out down to nuts and bolts. So it's a stock that keeps restocking itself over time, which is a nice thing to have. It reminds me of when I was young building my own bike back in Sacramento, where I couldn't afford Harleys. I couldn't afford the good bikes. So I had little CV Hondas. And I lived outside of Sacramento where I lived. It's called Rancho Cordova. They had a junkyard for every make and model of cars. You're going down Industrial Drive. You had one for Ford. You had one for Chevy, one for Toyota. And at the very end was a motorcycle junkyard. And it was no Harleys, no Triumphs. No, those were the elitist bikes. This was all Japanese, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Hondas, Yamahas.
Right.
And I lived in that junkyard every weekend scavenging parts for bikes that I was building. And so every time I go back into our used parts section, it reminds me of that being the passion that drove me when I was 18, 19 years old. You know, that was something I just loved to do, was building bikes.
And I know that y'all have the inventory on site. Do y'all list any of that online, or is it just all on site?
We have an eBay store and Shopify that's online right now. It's starting to pick up some steam. We have a good selection of new parts in stock, and we're constantly getting more stuff in. Especially as I keep track of what people come in and asking for. That way I kind of follow the trends. Just like when I go to a bike rally, I sit on the side of the road, just studying the bikes they're going by, looking for what people are interested in now, because, you know, everything's salt to taste on a bike, but the taste a lot of times will change together.
Sure.
Everybody gets interested in, like, for a while back, it was all about the tall stretch choppers. And then it went into pro street choppers. And then it went into something else. Right now it's it was big wheel baggers for a while. Now it's more into performance baggers. And one of the things that's come up as a real trend lately is your fat front tire baggers. They call it a pit bull. And Native Baggers makes a really good product with that we've used on a couple times on a couple bikes we built.
That's pretty cool. Do you have to change, when y'all do that, you have to change the forks over?
The forks you don't have to change. You have to change the triple tree, because it has to space it further apart, because 180 millimeter rear front tire that's going on the bike. But the forks can remain the same. So.
Gotcha. Does that make and just out of curiosity, because I haven't ridden one of those yet, does that make a ride difference? Does it make it a little bit more comfy, or?
It handles surprisingly well, because it balances out your front and your rear tire. Because your rear tire on your modern day touring bikes is a 180 millimeter rear tire. So you're putting that 180 on the front, and then you don't feel that off balance. Like when you lean into a turn, it feels like the bike is all moving as one. Whereas like on a bike, when you got, say, a 140 on the front and a 180 on the rear, you'll feel a difference in that turn. You can feel them not really oppose each other, but you can feel there's something different in there.
Yeah.
You know, which is one of the big things I noticed when I got on my first Harley versus Suzuki that I had before that. Spec for spec, they're almost identical bikes, but the center of gravity was different in the Harley. It felt much tighter and much more comfortable when I was going into a sharp turn with it. So
that's a really interesting dynamic to note. That's pretty cool. Any other trends that you guys are seeing right now in the motorcycle customization world that y'all seeing a lot coming in the shop?
The biggest trends that I'm seeing coming into the shop is, well, coming in a shop where we get a lot of around here is a lot of tires, because the roads here in Pensacola kind of suck.
That is the truth. And you got a lot of sand.
Yes. But the biggest trends that I'm seeing coming in is mainly people wanting to change out their stock bars to something, getting their knuckles up on a set of 14s and 16s. You know, not necessarily going to ape hangers, but ape hangers where they're having their hands up here, where you got more leverage and control over the motorcycles. When your hands are down low with your stock buckhorns, your actual control of the bike, you're using your body to try to turn the bike, and it's just not ergonomically not comfortable.
Yeah.
Mainly handlebars, exhaust is another big thing. I mean, everybody has their own taste. They don't want their bike to look like everybody else's bike, but they want their bike to have a custom look like everybody else's bike. So we get a lot of conversations as far as what style of exhaust, what sound you're wanting to have. If you want to have chrome blacked out, a lot of people are blacking things out, especially down here on the Gulf Coast, because black powder coat holds up better than chrome does. Salt air eats chrome. So that's one of the big things we see down there is a lot of people coming in asking about blacking out their bikes.
Yeah. So on my bike, I've got an '08 Fat Bob that's been chopped, but I know that the pipes on it actually have kind of a cover that's the blacked out, and it's just got the chrome underneath it.
That's the heat shield.
In y'all shop, y'all can actually do the powder coating to the actual exhaust though. And then you don't have to.
Yes. It's called Cerakoting. Yep. The Cerakoting goes under a higher temperature and bakes it on to where the heat of the exhaust won't cook it off.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. I think it's fair to say that there's probably nothing that y'all can't do to a bike at y'all shop that somebody might want to envision to do. Is I'm pretty correct on that?
For the most part, that is correct. There's two things we pretty much like to avoid though. One, we don't want to get into heavy metal fabrication, because quite frankly, the customer's never happy at the end of that because of the time involved to make it right. And number two, the shop's never happy on the end of that because the hours that goes into it, the customer never wants to pay that kind of labor for what they're going to get out of it. So it's a no-win situation.
Are you talking about like custom bending fenders and stuff like that?
Fenders, not so much, more custom bending frames, like frame stretching and things like that. The other thing is if your engine is completely grenaded and needs a complete rebuild, it costs you about the same to just buy a new crate motor and put it in a motorcycle than to try to rebuild that fragmented engine. Because in this one, we just did this on one bike. The guy insisted he wanted his engine put back together. The engine came apart. It had something that came loose inside and fragmented the inside of the engine. And then they put new jugs, did all this work on it, got this engine back up, and they didn't change out the oil pan, which had all those metal fragments in it.
Yeah, all the shavings in it.
All those metal fragments right back through this brand new engine they rebuilt and toasted this brand new engine. So they brought it to us, and we had to rebuild this engine again from the ground up when it would have cost them just the same to get a brand new motor and not go through the waiting period of having to piece this thing together. Because by the time we were done with it, we had 30, 40 hours of labor in this thing trying to piece it back together.
Sure.
I mean, that's a lot of time.
Oh, man, I would hate to have been the person who cranked that thing back up for the first time with not changing out the oil pan. Oh, my God.
Yeah. When I got told the story on that, it literally made me tear up a little bit. I hate to hear about a bike go through that. I mean, motorcycles have their own personalities, their own lives. I think of them almost like people.
Yep. There are almost 9 million motorcycles registered in the United States, and there are almost 5,000 motorcycle fatalities a year. That's almost 14 a day. Motorists don't do a good job looking out for motorcycles, and neither do insurance companies. Hi, I'm Chris Klotz, and as a writer and an attorney, I know that insurance companies treat motorcycle cases differently. If you've been injured in a motorcycle accident, bring your case to me to review. Let me take my writing experience and my knowledge of how to deal with insurance companies to get you the compensation that you deserve. The call and the advice during the call are free. Stevenson and Klotz Injury Lawyers, bring it. I know that Cottonmouth Customs got some events coming up and really kind of tied into some really cool things that y'all do in the community. I know that probably in November of this year, maybe I'll have you come back and talk about it before it actually happens. But tell us about y'all's involvement in the Gold Star Wall. I know that might be an event that y'all will be having in November at Cottonmouth, but tell us what that is, because that's a super cool project.
The Gold Star Wall is a traveling memorial wall of all the fallen since 9/11. Every star on that wall is one of our fallen since 9/11. And it's really emotional when they come out and Gold Star families who have one of those fallen that are on there, when one of them come out to see their son or their daughter or their husband or their father, or their wife, whoever, they see that person on that wall. It's a really, really emotional thing. They are a complete nonprofit organization. All these guys have day jobs. They do this out of their own pocket. They drive this Gold Star Wall all around the country to put on display in different cities. It's hard to describe without being there. It's just beautiful and sad at the same time.
Yeah. Do I recall correctly that y'all may have one of the retired walls at y'all shop right
Yes,
now?
we
And
do.
tell us a little bit about how that transitioned to you guys and where it is at y'all shop and everything.
We have it on display in our customer lounge. It was donated to us. They decommissioned that wall as they brought the new one out. The new one has more modern presentation to it and it gives them the ability to update it easier and better as time goes on, which is a sad thing to happen. But, we still have people over there that are still doing their part. And sadly, some of that ends up in sacrifice. And as those sacrifices are made, they go up on that Gold Star Wall. So it is a necessity to keep it constantly updating. So the old wall is hanging at Cottonmouth in our customer lounge, so for everybody to come see down there. And
yeah, and then
we sponsor them when they come in the area here.
And they'll be here around November of this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And y'all will have an event that y'all will promote and announce and talk
we'll
about.
Probably have it at Moonshine Saloon again, like we did last year.
Okay.
They have a large enough parking spot, and they have the bar and the lake, and it's beautiful scenery out there to do that. So bringing the Gold Star Wall there, it gives it a good presentation.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so we haven't really even touched on that aspect of y'all's business. Tell me, I know that y'all have some clubs and venues and places in addition to Cottonmouth. Tell us a little bit about that part of what's going on.
Well, all in all, we have, well, not we, it's our boss, John, but I say we. We have 7 bars in the area. Moonshine Saloon is one of them. Whiskey Runner Saloon is another one. Just One More Saloon is another one. DeLuna Bar and Grill on Pensacola Beach. Odom's up in Century. Purple Parrot, and Malibu.
Right on.
John loves the bar industry. He loves the live music industry. And this is kind of his way of keeping it alive, is getting these bars and building them up, updating them. Like, Malibu has been closed for a couple of years. They've been renovating this place for the last 4 months, 5 months. And it's almost ready to open. When it does, it's going to be absolutely beautiful, and, try to bring Gulf Beach Highway back to life and live music down there.
Yeah, very cool. And I know that in May, y'all have something going on with Thunder Beach. Tell us about y'all's participation in that and what's going to be going on, because that's a pretty cool thing too.
We're going to have a tent set up. I believe the spot is at Miss Newbies down there. It would be my first time going, because I've always had to work in the bar business every time Thunder Beach has been happening.
Sure.
So I spent 27 years in the bar business as a nightclub manager. So this will be my first time actually making Thunder Beach, because last year I had to work at Moonshine Saloon when they were down there. But I am looking forward to it. We're going to have a tent set up down there. I'm not exactly sure what all we're going to be doing. I believe we're going to be doing some Rockford Fosgate installs, which is the best motorcycle stereo system you can pretty much buy. It's the only one we stand by. We used to use a couple other companies, and they had their shortcomings that surfaced over time. So we ousted them, and we stuck with Rockford Fosgate, and they stuck by us. They make a great product. So we'll probably be doing some Rockford Fosgate installs, and probably, if we can get our dyno updated by then, I'm wanting to bring our dyno down there and do mobile dyno tunes, which that'll be
be fun. Yeah, that's always fun and cool to watch.
And it's just a point that I wanted to make with that. It kind of goes into why John started the shop to begin with. He got tired of seeing bikers getting screwed over by some of the other shade tree shops in the area. They didn't do the performance level that they claimed to do. They didn't do honest business practice. And that's kind of why John opened up the shop to begin with. Is, one story in particular, it was a bike that got brought to another shop. The original quote was $2,800 for a top end gasket build. They kept the bike for over 8 months because their mechanic would only work on it 2 or 3 hours a week. When it was done, or supposed to be done, they handed a $6,400 bill, $2,000 of which was storage fees for a bike that they stored on purpose on their end, and they didn't even fix what the bike was originally brought there for. That was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. Like John opened the shop. They don't do performance. They don't even fix the bikes, and they hand you these bills, and there's no transparency in there. When we do a build, everything on that bike is a transparency. Everything we do before I move forward on your bike. Let's say you bring your bike to me for an oil change, a tire change, and an Indiana inspection. We do a compression test. We write down what your compression test is coming out both cylinders. We do an end-to-end inspection. We check all the nuts and bolts and make sure everything's good in there. Even just an oil change going up on there, we do all that just for an oil change. The end-to-end inspection is it's something we do for our customers because we love bikes. We love our bike community, and we want to make sure you're taken care of,
Yeah.
And that goes into the performance thing. Like when we start doing performance on the dyno stuff, the whole reason why the dyno is even there, because you can tune your bike on a tuner. You can get a Fuel Pack 3. You can get a Power Vision. You can tune your bike. What a dyno does, a dyno shows you what your tuner is actually doing. Okay. Right. It puts that readout. So you can go, oh, wow, my bike's putting out 130 horse and such torque. That's bragging rights for you and your buddies. And it shows you how well your tuner is actually working for your bike, and it shows you, okay, I want to get a little bit more in this. What can I do to upgrade to that? It puts things into a format where we can understand how to make things happen for you.
Yeah. Well, that's a really cool service to have. And it's actually kind of fun to watch too.
Yeah, it is.
It's going down.
And when we use it like we did at the grand anniversary party is what we called it back in November. We put John's turbo road glide on there.
I think I saw a video of that somewhere on
Yeah.
YouTube or Facebook or something.
No, the tires on it had been sitting for a while. The bike had been sitting for a while, and we knew they were going to blow, so we kept everybody out from behind it. But John took it up to 177 miles an hour and blew that tire. Believe it or not, the tire still held air, though.
Really?
All the tread came off. I have the tire sitting in my shop. All the tread came off like an orange peel, but the actual carcass of the tire is still holding. It was still holding air until we pulled it off the rim, which blew my mind.
Wild.
We're hanging up. We're going to hang it up on what we call the wall of shame back in the shop.
Do I remember that the was the dyno in a trailer?
Yeah,
when that was happening.
Mobile dyno.
And did y'all have any punctures in the trailer?
No, I got pelted with a couple pieces of rubber because I was standing directly behind the bike with the camera on it when it blew for alongside the bike. But yeah,
that's fun, man. That's fun.
Yeah, it was.
Well, so Trevan, I always like to talk, about my guest and kind of your motorcycle journey, because that's one of the things that in doing this podcast that I have found to be really, really so intensely, personally individual for each person that's come on the podcast. And man, I'd like to know just a little bit about your motorcycle path, as a young person, how you got raised up around motorcycles and what your influences have been and, kind of where you are right now and how, just being in the motorcycle world has kind of shaped you. And I do want to mention one thing before we move on about the Gold Star. While I know that you were in the service as well, can you just kind of maybe start off by telling us a little bit about that also? And just, I know that that's one of the reasons why the Gold Star was so important to you, but then I kind of want to talk about your motorcycle path.
I served in the Marine Corps. I wound up out here in Pensacola. I'm originally from Lake Tahoe, California, actually between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, a little town called Camino that's on Highway 50 has a population of like 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about your dad and the story you told me about like growing up with your dad around bikes, and love that story.
Yeah, my dad had a Yamaha XS11 Special 1100 motorcycle when I was growing up. And I remember 7 years old, I'm in Little League playing for the Dodgers, and I'm on the back of my dad's bike riding to my first game.
Your helmet and your glove and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
To me, that was the best thing in the world. Once I got in that wind, I was addicted. I mean, you blame my dad for my addiction on that because it started my life journey of if I'm not in the wind, I'm not happy.
Yep.
But growing up on the back of his bike, that was heaven to me. Then when I was 14, when I graduated 8th grade, my dad and my mom got me a Honda SL 100. That was my first motorcycle that was mine. It was supposed to be a trail rider, but I found...
I'm sure you never rode it on the street.
No, not ever. Not on the street. I wouldn't do a thing like that. I found that the pavement was much more fun than the dirt because I could go faster. I learned a few harsh lessons. Luckily, I never wrecked on that bike, but I ran it out of gas at the bottom of a valley and had to push it up the hill to my home before my dad got home from work that day.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's fun. I was lucky I was in good shape. All those chores that I had to do, they did their job.
Yeah.
When I turned 18, I got my first street legal motorcycle, the KZ 440 Kawasaki, and I had 5 motorcycles before and during when I was in the Marine Corps. Probably rode 500,000 miles over those 2-3 years. And then
wow. And so in that period of time when you're in the Marines, are you on V-twins? Are you on sport bikes?
My bikes were pre-sport bikes. Sport bikes and V-twins were for guys that could afford them.
Right.
What I had was the KZ 440 Cowie, then I had a Honda CB 650, then a KZ 650 Kawasaki, then a Honda CB 404, which actually of all my motorcycles, the CB 404 was my favorite one besides my Harleys because it was one that I literally built from the ground up.
Yeah.
When I bought it, it looked like a moped, like, something you'd see in Thailand going through the back streets in the 70s. And when I was done, it was a full-fledged Cafe Racers, did 125 miles in the mountains and 125 miles an hour in the mountains. And
man, I'm right there with you. But the bike that I wish that I had never given up was my Yamaha SR 500 Thumper, man. Mm-hmm. And it looked like a moped when I got it, and I cafe'd it all by myself. It was the first project that I ever did on my own, and I missed that bike. I wish I'd hung on to it.
Yeah.
But those bikes are super cool. And so you had all those bikes while you were in the Corps.
No, those were before,
500,000 miles.
Yeah, those were before the Corps.
Okay.
Well, I got all those miles because I lived in Placerville. I worked in Sacramento, and I went to Lake Tahoe every weekend just to go party with my friends. you got to figure it's just from Splashville to Sacramento is 45 miles each way. So I'm riding 100 miles a day. And then when I go up style, you're turn that 200 miles. So I'm riding easily 1,000 miles in a week, every week. And
that's a lot of rain or shine, man. You have a bunch of miles under your belt. That's cool.
Rain, shine, snow, hail. Hail sucks on a motorcycle, by the way. that's pain. And then when I first got out here to Pensacola, in all honesty, people drove so badly out here, it terrified me. I was used to California. Everybody drives crazy in California. They all drive the same crazy. They all drive fast.
Right.
And in Pensacola, you have people tailgating you in the slow lane while you're doing 10 over the speed limit, but you got a guy in the fast lane doing 10 under the speed limit, holding up traffic, forcing him to go around and then getting hit. And then you add cell phones into the mix and everything else. I went 16 years without being on a motorcycle when I got out here. I moved out here in 1994. I got back on a motorcycle the first time in 2010. And I was on a Suzuki 800.
Right.
And that year, as soon as I got that bike finished, customized it, the shop, got all my work done on it, that night I go down at 60 miles an hour because the girl runs a stop sign in front of me and stopped in my path.
Oh my gosh. Man, isn't that like 9 times out of 10, isn't that the case?
I was back on the bike the next week though. I took more damage than the bike did, thank God.
Yeah.
But I had fractured collarbone, snapped my ACL in my left leg in half, had mangled the meniscus in my left knee, had to have 2 surgeries, put my leg back together so I could walk normal-ish again. Got back on the bike and kept on trucking.
Yeah. So on those bikes, would you say that you leaned more towards cafeing them, or did you do more tracker work on them, custom?
The early ones were more about cafe style. They were more flat backs. I couldn't afford, like I said, sport bikes. But I always wanted to have a Harley. I always wanted to have a cruiser I could have more muscle than sleek. When I got out here, the bikes that I started riding were bigger bikes. I started with an 800 Suzuki. It was a Marauder, which kind of looks like a small fat boy.
Right.
And then I got on a Suzuki Intruder, which is the same as like a Softail Custom. And then I got my first Harley, which is a Dyna. So, I always wanted to have a Dyna. Was always my dream bike. It was just that style of a Harley was always my dream bike.
Yep.
And what I built it up into.
And so tell us what you're riding now.
Now I'm on an 06 Street Glide. I still have my Dyna as well, but John, my boss, actually gave me a present last year. He gave me his 06 Street Glide.
Nice.
And that's my baby.
Right on.
And it's built like a race bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got an 88 twin cam engine in it, but the cam in it is so big it lopes like a drag car. And when you romp on the throttle, it acts like a drag car. It actually beats my Dyna 0 to 100 by 2 seconds.
My
Dyna's got a 103 motor in it with the 2017, and it's faster than that Dyna, and the Dyna's 250 pounds lighter.
That's something else. And I don't know that I've seen that one out there. I gotta come out and take a look at that one. Well, hey, Trevan, we're about running out of time. I'm so grateful for you coming and sharing, your story about, you and your motorcycle life, and you and Cottonmouth and John's businesses, and just, telling us what you do.
I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So Trevan Bowman, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Man, you know what? I am still your senior by a few years. So, you're looking good.
I got more gray hair than you do, though.
Well, I don't know. I can't see that far. I've got my reading contacts in, but you're looking good. Happy birthday. I hope you're doing something super fun. Trevan Bowman with Cottonmouth Customs. Thank you so much for coming out here and being on Motorcycle Hang Time. We would love to have you come back sometime. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Motorcycle Hang Time with Chris Klotz. Go to StevensonKlotz.com to get more information about motorcycle safety issues and motorcycle law. Please leave us a rating and a review whenever you listen to your podcast. We invite you to spend time with us on our next episode.